everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, we're going to learn how to crochet this cozy winter mega scarf. This is a big, fluffy, super cozy scarf that is fun to make and so super easy. We're going to be doing some half double crochet stitches, but we've also added some fun details just to make this scarf a little bit fun and interesting as you crochet it. Every time we have a color change, we're going to learn how to do a spike stitch where our colors change. So you can see how the colors kind of reach down into the other color. And you can see that here with these colors as well. And then over here where our pink goes into the teal. So it's a really fun scarf. Easy stitches. We're going to learn how to do all of them if you're unfamiliar with any of them. And then we have an optional fringe using all of the colors that kind of finishes off the scarf as well. And we're going to learn how to do that. So again, this is a super cozy for the coldest days of winter, and it's very generously sized and fluffy and just such a fun scarf for winter with the bright colors. Okay, so like I mentioned before, this is a big, generously sized scarf. The finished width of this is about 11 inches wide. The length, minus the fringe, just the scarf itself, is about 85 inches long. So you can really wrap this around. The fringe on either end is 10 inches on either side. So it'll add an additional 20 inches of length total to the scarf. Okay, so let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. A tape measure is super helpful if you want to change the width or the length of your scarf. We're going to be using a 12mm P crochet hook. Now I wanted to point that out because I have a P crochet hook here and I grabbed a different one. Some manufacturers will call their P hooks different sizes. So for example, here's my Furls P hook. This is a 10mm and then this is a 12mm P hook. And then if we look at the label, the hook they recommend is also a USP hook, but it's a 15mm. So it does vary a little bit. But if you just go up, anything 10 or above would be just fine with this yarn. So let's talk about the yarn a little bit. I have here some beautiful yarn from Hobbii. This is new. This is called Udon. And it's a lovely, it's kind of like a roving kind of yarn with a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a heathered look to it. And it's super soft and warm and cozy. Now, it does recommend the P crochet hook, and we did talk about kind of how the sizing has some variations. But if you stick with the number 6 super bulky yarn, look for the yarn ball with a number in it on your yarn label, number 6 super bulky. And we're going to be using, like I said, I'm going to scoot that out of the way, the 12mm hook for this, okay? Or something similar. It's not super exact. It's a very squishy, super bulky kind of scarf that we're going to be making. So something similar. If you have the 10mm P hook, you could get away with that, or a little bit bigger than this would be okay. So each ball of this is 104 yards. So we're going to be using 416 yards total of this yarn for our scarf. Okay, now let's talk about the colors because I picked some pretty colors here. We're going to be doing a color block scheme. Now you could do stripes with your yarn. It's totally up to you, but I'm going to basically work my purple section and then go into the green section, the pink section, and then this teal section until the yarn is gone, okay? So it'll be real easy to just kind of cruise through the yarn balls. So the colors that I have here, if you want to replicate them for yourselves, this is number 70. It's called Purple Rain. Now, as a side note, this does come in dye lots. So if you have 4 of the same color, make sure the dye lots are the same so you have even color consistency throughout your project. The next color we're going to be using is color number 114. That's called Sage, if you go over to the Hobbii website. This pink color here is number 54. That's called Pink Berry Smoothie. And then this lovely teal here is color number 89, and that's called Deep Ocean. So I sort of put them in the order that I'll be working with them. I'm going to start with the purple for our tutorial, and we're going to move on to the different colors. But I sort of did a warm, cool. So I did warm, cool green, warm pink, cool teal. Okay, so we'll kind of like mix up the colors a little bit. You could do them in more of a rainbow order. You could sort of order them, let's see, like this, as they more would appear as a rainbow. But I like the the warm cool, so we have maximum contrast, because we are going to be doing the spike stitch. So the colors of the spikes are going to reach down into those other colors, and I wanted to get the maximum contrast that I could. So let's get started. We're going to learn how to do our starting chain and get started on the first couple of rows, and then later on we'll learn how to do that spike stitch so the color reaches down into the other color, and then we'll keep going and finish up our scarf. Okay, so I have my first color here. Now, like I mentioned before, we're going to be doing like a color block effect. So I'm going to do the entire ball of purple yarn before switching colors. So we're going to have like this 1, 2, 3, 4 color scarf, okay? So what we need to do first is put a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, and I'm just going to come in a little bit so you can see better. Wrap the yarn behind your loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten, okay? Now our starting chain is 18. If you need to change the width of your scarf, just work in multiples of 3, okay? So to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So this starting chain will give you an idea of how wide your scarf is going to be. If you want it to be wider, again, just work in multiples of 3. Okay, so for our first row, what we're going to do is work a half double crochet in the third chain from the hook. So this loop here does not count. We're going to go 1, 2, and 3. So to make a half double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert the hook into that third chain from the hook, and bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 3 loops. And then all we're going to do for this first row is just work half double crochets in each chain across, okay? So work a half double crochet in the next chain, half double crochet in the next chain, and so forth, okay? So I'm going to work my half double crochets and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, we're just coming up to the end of the row here, just working our half double crochets in each chain. And you can see already, just by working one row, how much height that is because of the fluffiness of our yarn. So let's move on to row 2. For row 2, it's pretty much the same as row 1. We're going to chain 2 and turn our work. Now this chain 2 counts as a half double crochet. So this stitch that you see at the bottom here, we're going to skip over that and go to the next one, okay? So you're just going to work a half double crochet into that stitch and a half double crochet in each stitch across. Just like that, okay? So go ahead and work your half double crochets in each stitch across, and when we get to the end of this row, we'll rejoin. Okay, coming up to the end of row 2, I'm just going to work a half double crochet in that last stitch, and then at the end here you'll see your turning chain. So all you want to do is work a half double crochet into that top chain of that turning chain as well to finish off the row, okay? All right, so row 2 is complete. So you're just going to repeat row 2. Now, this is your personal choice at this point, depending on how you want your color striping to be. I'm going to keep repeating row 2 until my purple yarn is gone and I'm ready to move on to the next color. Now, for this first section, this first color we're going to do, this first color block, we're not going to do any spike stitches. The spike stitches will be later on in the project because that first color change we do, those colors will reach down into this purple. So we don't need to do any spike stitches yet, but we'll learn that part next. So keep working your row 2 until your piece is as tall as you would like it to be. Now, if you're doing shorter stripes of color, you're going to change color sooner. If you're doing color blocks like me, I'm going to keep going until my purple, I've used up all my purple basically. So keep going with row 2. When we rejoin, I'm going to show you, we're going to take a quick measurement of this purple section and I'm going to share with you how many rows that I did, and then we'll move on to the next color. Okay, we're just working that very last stitch of the row. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about the length that we have here. So I went for about 19 inches. This is a total of 21 rows, okay? Now, you can keep going. I know I mentioned I would go until I ran out of purple, but I actually decided to save some because I'm going to put some fringe on the bottom of this, and I want it to be mixed colors on both sides. So I did save a little bit of purple left. So you can keep going with your purple till it runs out like we talked about before, or you can save some for some fringe or tassel or pom-poms or whatever you would like to do. And we're going to add a little bit of fringe to the bottom. So now we're ready. Once you get the length that you want, now we're ready to switch gears and start with our spike row and switch colors, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the next color. For me, it's this green color. And I'm going to cut the yarn, leaving myself a little bit of a tail, and go ahead and fasten off. So wrap the yarn around the hook and just bring it through the loop like that and tighten. Okay, now grab your next color. You can put that yarn aside, any spare that you have for some fringe or what have you later. If you go over to the written pattern on the blog, I do have links to a tassel tutorial, a pom-pom tutorial, and a fringe tutorial. We're going to do the fringe together, but if you want to see some of those other little accents you can put on your piece, definitely check that out. So what we want to do now is insert the new yarn into our project. So in that last stitch that you worked, go ahead and insert your hook into that last stitch, grab the new yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail here, hook it on and bring it through. Okay, and then we're just going to tie it right on. If you have a preferred way that you like to join yarn to your project, definitely feel free to do that. I know there's lots of different ways to do it. That's the way I like to do it. But if you have a preferred way, definitely feel free to do that. Okay, so moving right along, what we're going to do is, so we did rows 1 through 21. So for our 22nd row, okay, we're going to reach into that same stitch, bring up a loop, and this time we're just going to chain 1, okay, and turn. Now, just like our half double crochet stitches, this chain 1 that we did counts as a single crochet stitch. So go ahead and work a single crochet into that next stitch. So insert the hook into that stitch, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops, okay? Then we're going to work a spike stitch into the next stitch. So that is going to be worked almost the exact same way. So locate the next stitch, which is right here. So normally we would work into that loop here. But for our spike, we're going to reach down and work it into a little bit lower of a space, okay? So if you look at your stitch down below, there's an opening here. And depending on the yarn that you're using, it might look a little bit different for you. But just as a general rule of thumb, work into the same, keep it on the same line all the way across and you'll be just fine, okay? Now, if you go down, reach down deeper, you can make a very deep spike. If you go a little bit shallower, your spike will be shorter, okay? I'm going to go into the space directly below that stitch, okay? So insert it into that space, bring up a loop. You can kind of like loosen it up if you need to. You don't want it to be too tight because it will scrunch your work down. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through both loops, and that's it. Go into the next stitch, work a single crochet again. Next stitch, we're going to work a spike. So we're just going to alternate, okay? Insert your hook into that space right directly below your stitch. Bring up a loop, loosen things up if you need to. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops, okay? Just like that. Work a single crochet in the next stitch. Spike stitch into the next stitch, same thing. I'm going to redo that because I picked up some yarn. There we go. Bring up a loop, loosen it up if you need to. Yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Single crochet in the next stitch and so forth, okay? Spike stitch into the next stitch, bring up a loop, loosen it up. That loosening it up helps quite a bit, okay? Work a single crochet in the next stitch. Spike stitch into the next stitch that you come to. Single crochet into the next stitch, and then a spike stitch into the last stitch there. Just look for that opening right below the stitch, and then we're going to work a single crochet into that turning chain, the top chain of the turning chain, just like we did in the previous row. So we're basically just replicating what we've done. We're just adding some spike stitches in there. It's the same number of stitches. We're just changing it up a little, okay? So as you can see, if you add some spikes like this, it adds a really fun interesting color change, okay? So now for our next row, the row after that, what we're going to do is we're going to just do what we did here and work half double crochet stitches. So this row is pretty easy. This will be very familiar. We're going to chain 2. 1, 2, turn your work once again. And again, this counts as a half double crochet stitch. So we're going to go to that next stitch and we're going to work a half double crochet stitch in the next stitch, and then in the next stitch, and all the way across. Now some of these stitches that you just did, these spike stitches, they might look a little bit like the top might be a little bit more open than what you're used to seeing in a regular stitch. But that's okay. Just work it into the same stitch as you normally would. It might just look different because the bottom of the stitch is a lot lower with the spike. Okay, so all the way across, work your half double crochets. Just like that. And then at the end, the turning chain space or the top of the turning chain, whatever you can find, because it's single crochets and we only did a chain 1, it might be a little bit short. So you can just, if you need to go into the space there, that's okay, just as a little tip. Okay, so when you're done, what you're going to do is you're just going to repeat this sequence over and over and over again until your scarf is as long as you would like it to be, adding more colors as you go. So remember, we did 21 rows of half double crochet from start to like the very first row onward. So rows 1 through 21 were our half double crochet stitches. Row 22 was our spike row, and row 23 was another half double crochet row. So you're just going to repeat this sequence over and over and over again with your green yarn. And if you're doing fringe, like I mentioned before, save a little bit of yarn off to the side so you can have some green fringe in there as well. So I'm going to keep going with mine. When we rejoin, I'm going to have all the colors presented to you so you can see everything. And we're going to keep going and add some fringe next, do some finish work as well. Okay, so to continue with your scarf, you're going to repeat rows 2 through 21 of the pattern. You can go back and rewatch what we did, or you can hop on over to the blog and there's the full written pattern as well if you'd like to kind of follow along. Sometimes with patterns with multiple rows like that, I like to kind of check them off as I go. You can also get the ad-free PDF if you'd like a printable version of that over at the blog as well. There's a link to that to get it in my shop. So keep repeating rows 2 through 21 of the pattern. Go through all the colors, and when we rejoin, what we're going to do is kind of look at all of our colors that we did, and we're going to add some fringe. Totally optional, but we're going to add a little bit of fringe to our work. So we'll rejoin in a minute, but keep repeating rows 2 through 21 of the pattern, and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, I'm just working that very last stitch of our scarf, and we're going to look at all this. Again, we repeated rows 2 through 21 of the pattern all the way through until we used up all the colors. So again, we did like a beautiful color block effect. Okay, so next we're going to do a little bit of finish work and add some fringe. But first, we're going to cut the yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail, and fasten off, okay? And then just pull it tight. So what we want to do now is grab our tapestry needle and our scissors, and we're going to weave in some ends, okay? So spin this around. We'll do one of these together. Okay, so every time you changed colors, you should have had some ends. Actually, before we look at that, let's look at our scarf. So we went through, and I'll zoom out a little bit, we went through the teal last, and see how those spikes just transitioned so beautifully into the next color. Then we did the pink, and then it transitioned into the green, and then transitioned into the purple, okay? So we have a really pretty, cozy, very colorful scarf. It's just so nice to have something cozy and colorful for winter in those long days of winter. Okay, so what we want to do now is grab one of the ends, and because this is kind of like a roving type yarn, you want to give it a little bit of a twist before you thread the needle. It'll just make it so much easier. So give it a little twist and feed it through. And then what we're going to do is just stay in the same color area when you weave in your ends so they won't show. You're just going to go in, just try to stay in the middle of those loops and plies. And I like to go in one direction with my tail. and then kind of straighten things out, and then come back in the other direction. Now, because this is such thick, squishy yarn, you can really go into the plies in between the strands of yarn as well, and it'll kind of help lock it into place. All right, so we came back in the other direction, and then take your tail and give it a snip, straighten things out, okay? You want to repeat that for the rest of your tails for your scarf, and then we're going to move on to some fringe. Okay, all of our ends have been woven in, and now we're ready to add some fringe. Again, this is optional. So go to one of the ends of your scarf. We're going to repeat this for both ends. I'm going to show you how to do one of them. Now, I went and grabbed some of the leftovers that I had from the scarf. I saved a little bit on purpose just to add the fringe. If you are not doing fringe, you may not have leftovers, okay? So what we're going to do is, the scarf is really big and fluffy, so I'm going to position it so we can just work at the bottom here. So grab one of the ends of your scarf like this, and I kind of upgraded to a bigger pair of scissors and needle just because it's so fluffy. So what we're going to do is we're going to represent all the colors in our fringe, okay, on both ends. Okay, so we're going to take our yarn, and we're going to I grabbed a ruler just to kind of show you, but we're going to do 24 inches. So that's 2 rulers worth here, because your ruler is 12 inches. So we're going to stretch a piece of yarn about 2 rulers, and then we're going to fold it in half and make it the same length as the other piece, okay? And then give it a snip, okay? Now, take your yarn, and we're going to need your hook for this. So grab your hook, and you're going to take the yarn that you just cut, and you're going to fold it in half and kind of loop it around your finger, and then go into the edge of your scarf here, and we're going to insert our hook into the bottom edge here, hook that piece of yarn, and bring it through, and then we're going to just pull it through that loop and tighten, okay? And that's it. And we're going to repeat that all the way across for all of our colors. Now, I would recommend doing a pattern, but you can really do any color combo you want. So let's do that one more time. We're going to grab our ruler just as a guideline, just to keep it kind of consistent, and do 2 rulers worth, fold it in half, and let those ends meet so it's the same length. And then take your piece of yarn that you just cut, kind of loop it around your finger, go into the next stitch. You can go by stitches just to keep it straight, and bring that loop up and send the end through and tighten, okay? And then just kind of straighten it out, okay? So just repeat that all the way across, and when we rejoin, we'll look at our fringe, trim it up a little bit, and our scarf will be complete. Okay, all of the fringe has been added and it looks pretty. So what we want to do next is, you can grab your ruler again just to help yourself out. Now, I also wanted to just point out before we cut anything that when you make fringe, the front and back looks a little bit different, and you can kind of decide what look you like best. So this side sort of makes a V-shaped knot, and when you flip it over, the other side makes a more of a horizontal knot. So if you like the one look versus the other, just flip it over the opposite of what I did when you're making your fringe, and it will look like that on that side, okay? So what we're going to do with our fringe is scoot our scarf up, and you can grab your ruler again, just kind of like comb things down with your fingers. And this yarn is very, very fluffy and forgiving, so it will help when we're cutting. But you can take your ruler and just kind of like hold it up to the area where you want to cut, and then just use that as a guideline, okay? So let's scoot this way up here so we can see it with the ruler. Okay, and just kind of line it up. I'm going to go to the bottom of the highest loop, which is this one here. So I'm going to just come right under that, and then take your scissors, and you can just use that as a guideline when you cut, okay? So just give it a little snip, and it's very thick, so just go nice and slow and just go across. And once you kind of have your line, you can move the ruler if you need to. But I'm just going to take this straight across. And then we're going to do a little test here and just kind of like shake it out a little bit. There might be some yarn crumbs, but if you have some long pieces, you can go ahead and give them a little trim. Just kind of like, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but it does help to get it lined up now. So you'll want to repeat the same thing for the other side, and then our scarf will be done. So we repeated the fringe on the other side, and our beautiful scarf is done. So that is how you crochet the cozy winter mega scarf. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux video updates. Thanks again.